The film opens at a modest farmhouse in South Africa. An English mother, recently bereaved, gives birth to a young boy named Peter Philip Kenneth, commonly referred to as PK. He enjoys a straightforward life, receiving ample care from both his mother and his nanny. The son of the nanny, Tandarai, becomes his closest companion, and the two engage in various activities together. PK's mother endeavors to educate them at the farmhouse to the best of her ability. However, tranquility is disrupted when a mysterious illness claims the lives of all the farm's cattle. This event triggers a nervous breakdown in his mother, who is subsequently advised to take complete rest. Consequently, young PK is sent to a boarding school while she recuperates. Regrettably, the only affordable option available is an institution managed by Afrikaners, the descendants of European settlers in South Africa, often referred to as white Africans. On his first day, PK attends a history class where the lecturer discusses the conflict between the English and Afrikaners over land control, including the establishment of concentration camps. After centuries, a conservative Afrikaner government ascends to power, resulting in racial discrimination against both the English and black populations. PK soon realizes that he is the sole English student at the school, and the other pupils regard him with hostility, attributing blame for the suffering of their ancestors to him. An older student named Yapi Botag goes to the extent of spitting in PK's face. One evening, he and his friends trap PK in the bathroom, mocking him with derogatory names such as Piss Cop and Piss Head. They forcibly pull him into the shower and urinate on him. The other students present do not intervene. Rather, they take delight in his degradation. This severe bullying leads PK to develop a habit of bedwetting due to anxiety. One night, a guard informs PK of his mother's passing. He is taken back to the farmhouse for the funeral, where he reunites with his nanny and Hondarai. Having departed shortly after his mother fell ill, PK is overwhelmed with guilt regarding her death, often contemplating whether she might still be alive had he remained to assist in her care. Subsequently, PK confides in his nanny about the bullying he faces at school. She has always treated PK as if he were her own child, and she is his only remaining family. In response, PK's nanny seeks the assistance of the most esteemed healer from her tribe, the Bula Manzi. To help PK confront his fears, the Bula Manzi conducts a ritual that induces a trance-like state in him. Utilizing his healing abilities, he assists the young child in overcoming his deeply ingrained fears and maladaptive behaviors. PK receives a chicken, which he names Mother Courage, to accompany him on his journey. She becomes his closest companion throughout his formative years. With his only surviving relative being his grandfather in Congo, PK is returned to boarding school. He brings Mother Courage along, and she vigilantly watches over him, safeguarding him from bullies during the night. A month later, reports emerge indicating that war has erupted in Europe. That evening, PK and Mother Courage are abducted from their dormitory and taken to a hall. In that setting, Boda stands before them, orchestrating a mock Nazi tribunal. He discloses his fixation on Hitler and articulates his animosity towards the English, blaming PK for the deaths of countless Afrikaners during the conflict. The frightened young PK remains paralyzed as Boda threatens to exact punishment on him and all Englishmen. Soon after, Boda commands the other students to execute Mother Courage. PK desperately implores them to spare her, but his pleas fall on deaf ears. They hang her from the ceiling, and Boda mercilessly kills her with a stone launched from a slingshot. Furious, PK charges at Boda, causing him to stumble backward onto a small flagpole that impales his buttocks. The other students erupt in laughter as Boda grimaces in agony. Overcome with humiliation, Boda commands that PK be suspended upside down from the ceiling, reminiscent of Mother Courage. The students begin to chant in unison, calling for PK's demise, which further incites Boda's anger. In a fit of rage, he strikes PK with a stone from his slingshot, rendering him unconscious. At that moment, a professor enters the hall and witnesses the disorder. Boda approaches the professor, only to be met with a slap and a reprimand, as the professor calls him foolish in front of his peers. As a consequence of this incident, Boda is permanently expelled from the institution. Following the deaths of his mother and pet chicken, PK feels as though his situation cannot deteriorate further. He then discovers that his cherished nanny, Antandarai, must return to her family. It appears that all his loved ones are being taken from him, leaving PK in a state of profound loneliness once more. Eventually, his grandfather returns from the Congo and brings him to live in Barberton. Regrettably, a bond fails to form between them, prompting his grandfather to introduce him to one of his acquaintances. This is the moment we are introduced to Karl Doc von Wallenstein, commonly referred to as Doc. Doc is a solitary German musician and an amateur botanist who suffered the tragic loss of his entire family due to execution by the Nazis. PK's grandfather proposes that Doc take the young boy under his mentorship and provide him with piano lessons. In exchange, PK will assist him in maintaining his flourishing cactus garden. Doc willingly accepts the opportunity to guide the young boy, having recently lost his own grandson. Under Doc's tutelage, PK becomes a proficient piano player. As World War II commences, Doc finds himself imprisoned in Barberton Prison for not registering as an enemy alien. The prison's head, Commander von Ziel, is an Afrikaner who holds a deep appreciation for German culture. Consequently, he permits Doc to maintain a cactus garden in the prison courtyard and to have a piano in his cell. Additionally, he grants PK unrestricted visitation rights. Shortly thereafter, Doc learns that PK is only achieving satisfactory grades at school. He discovers that intelligent students are often bullied at his school, which he believes is the reason for PK's lack of effort in his studies. In response, Doc introduces him to a colored inmate named Gil Pete, who possesses considerable boxing experience. Pete assumes the role of boxing mentor to PK, imparting to him the guiding principle: first with the head, then with the heart. This principle remains with PK for the entirety of his life. Concurrently, PK persists in his piano studies, achieving mastery in flawless performance. One day, Pete observes Doc transporting cacti in a bucket, their roots encased in tobacco leaves. Despite the illegality of this act, Pete discreetly inquires if he may retain the tobacco. Regrettably, a sergeant overhears this conversation and violently assaults Pete with a baton. In a moment of ingenuity, Piquet proposes that Pete empty the bucket daily, enabling him to covertly introduce the tobacco without detection. The narrative then transitions to 5 years later. Piquet continues to train rigorously with Pete while incarcerated. He ultimately secures victory in the Inter-Prison Boxing Championship at the age of. Simultaneously, Doc's cactus garden thrives as he cultivates and nourishes the cacti that Piquet brings from his residence in Barberton. They also maintain a clandestine supply of tobacco for Pete and other inmates. PK, ever kind-hearted and empathetic, takes on the role of the unofficial letter writer for his fellow prisoners. Numerous inmates begin to refer to PK as the Rainmaker. This nickname arises from his ability to foster tranquility and his compassionate treatment of all individuals, irrespective of their tribal affiliations. PK slowly becomes cognizant of the severe injustices endured by black prisoners. The Afrikaner guards subject them to appalling conditions and frequently inflict physical violence upon them. One day, Doc presents Pete with a bucket of tobacco intended for himself and the other inmates. However, Sergeant Herman spots Pete from a distance and summons him. The guard subsequently humiliates Pete by pouring manure onto his shoes and compelling him to consume it. Despite having the chance to shift the blame onto other prisoners, Pete chooses to kneel and eat the manure while his fellow inmates observe in sorrow. Piquet is profoundly affected to witness Pete, whom he holds in high regard, subjected to such degradation. After the guard departs, Doc and PK hurriedly assist Pete in standing, and the other prisoners sing in tribute to his bravery. Following this incident, news circulates that the war is nearing its conclusion. Doc joyfully conveys this information to Pete and PK, expressing his anticipation of returning to Germany. PK experiences a sense of sorrow at the thought that he may never see Doc again. Shortly thereafter, the commander requests Doc to arrange a concert in honor of the annual visit from the prison commissioner. Although he is initially reluctant, Doc consents to Pete's proposal. The three collaborate on the concert, with Doc skillfully playing the piano. PK is assigned the task of composing the lyrics and gathers various groups of prisoners to perform in their native languages. The unique aspect of the lyrics is that they express the feelings of the colored prisoners. The song cleverly mocks and criticizes the Afrikaner guards in languages that they do not comprehend. On the evening of the concert, PK, Doc, and the prisoners get ready for their performance. PK observes that Pete is missing, but Doc reassures him that Pete will arrive shortly. Meanwhile, Pete rushes to join the audience, as he is already late for the event. Just as he exits his cell, he encounters Sergeant Borman. The sergeant halts Pete and demands that he translate the lyrics of the song being performed. He also accuses Pete of instigating the concert and begins to physically assault him. Exasperated by the mistreatment, Pete courageously translates the lyrics, which label the guards as cowards. In a fit of rage, the sergeant violently assaults him, while the unaware prisoners continue to sing and revel in the performance. Shortly thereafter, PK spots Sergeant Borman at the fence behind the stage, his clothing stained with blood. Sensing that something is amiss, PK hurries to investigate. He soon finds Pete in the yard, gravely injured from the officer's assaults. With his final breath, Pete recites the mantra, first with his mind, then with his heart, before passing away in PK's embrace. As the war ultimately concludes, Doc returns to Germany. PK reflects on the loved ones he has lost, feeling their absence as he faces solitude once more. The narrative then advances several years, with PK now attending a prestigious school where he excels in his studies. He has gained the admiration of the headmaster and secured a scholarship for his education. His closest friend is Maury, his manager, who organizes boxing matches for him. PK is set to participate in a boxing championship when he notices an Afrikaner girl in the audience cheering for him. Curious, he requests Maury to uncover her identity. PK triumphs in the championship, captivating the entire audience. Later, Maury discloses that the girl is Maria Maris, the daughter of a distinguished official in the National Party who attends a boarding school. In spite of Maury's cautions, PK ventures out one night to see Maria. She reveals to him that her father would never consent to her dating an English boy. Unfazed, PK decides to personally request her father's permission. On a different occasion, Maury introduces PK to a boxing coach named Mr. Grainwald to refine his abilities. Initially skeptical, Mr. Grainwald changes his perspective upon witnessing PK's performance in the ring. He is left impressed by PK's strength and technique. PK's display, which includes a remarkable punch combination, receives accolades from both the coach and his opponent. Mr. Grainwald agrees to negotiate terms for further training of PK. Following this, PK approaches Maria's father, Professor Daniel Maris, to ask for permission to pursue his daughter. The conversation regarding tribal rights swiftly transforms into a confrontation of differing opinions as Mr. Maris dismisses PK's progressive views and forbids him from seeing his daughter. When Mr. Grainwald suggests a match against the black boxer Gideon Duma, both PK and Maury decline, citing the illegality of interracial competition. As they leave, PK notices Maria waiting for him. Aware of her father's objections, they opt to pursue a secret relationship. Later, the individual who proposed the fight reveals himself to be a former inmate of Barberton Prison, having served time with Pete. PK recognizes him, and Duma introduces himself. In the meantime, Mr. Maris instructs Colonel Brayton and his sergeant to monitor PK's activities. Subsequently, PK travels to Alexandria for the boxing match against Duma. Accompanied by Maury, Maria, and Mr. Grainwald, PK ultimately triumphs in the fight, leading to a newfound friendship between him and Duma. PK subsequently travels to Alexandria to meet with Duma, where they engage in a conversation about the town's inadequate living conditions and Duma's aspirations for tribal equality in South Africa. Duma suggests the establishment of an English school for black individuals, a proposal that PK and Maury ultimately accept after some initial reluctance. They secure permission from the headmaster to utilize a study room for classes on Saturday evenings. On one such Saturday night, Maria finds herself in a heated argument with her father, who disapproves of her relationship with PK due to his participation in an integrated gym and his association with an anti-racist boxing coach. In response to her father's threats of punishment, Maria storms out of the house in anger. Meanwhile, the residents of Alexandria gather for their English lessons at the school, where Maria unexpectedly expresses her support for PK. However, the following day, they receive the unfortunate news that the police have mandated the closure of the Saturday night classes. It is later disclosed that Yapi Boda has been promoted to sergeant and has been monitoring Maria and PK. He confronts PK at his gym, accusing him of being responsible for his expulsion from school. This confrontation escalates into violence as the police begin to assault PK and anyone who attempts to intervene, including Duma and Mr. Grainwald. Despite her father's objections, the relationship between PK and Maria continues to flourish. On a particular evening, Maury organizes English classes to be held in his uncle's church. Maria astonishes them by providing pencils for the students. Shortly thereafter, the police storm the church, accusing them of desecrating its sanctity and promoting racial mixing. In the ensuing turmoil, the police begin to assault everyone present, and tragically, Maria is struck by a baton, resulting in her immediate death. This unexpected loss profoundly affects PK, leading him to contemplate leaving Africa to pursue studies at Oxford. Nevertheless, Duma motivates him by illustrating the positive impact that learning English has on the community in Alexandria. One evening, Brayton and his police force, including Yapi Bada, arrive in Alexandra Township with the intention of raiding a party to locate PK. The police forcefully enter, indiscriminately shooting and beating individuals. Just as Boda is about to shoot the boxing promoter, Peak emerges from his hiding place. He courageously confronts Boda, demanding an end to the raid. A confrontation ensues between the two, culminating in Peak successfully knocking Boda out. Boda soon regains consciousness and attempts to shoot Peak, but Duma quickly intervenes, striking him in the head and rendering him unconscious once more. 1. In conclusion, PK and Duma pledge to persist in their struggle against racial injustice and to carry on with their journey the following morning. The film concludes with PK contemplating the guidance he has received from the significant individuals in his life. Thank you for watching and do not forget to subscribe.